So we're gonna do this whole thing again, because last time we were out of focus. We're using a different lens, trying to do the wide angle thing. Oh man, thank God there's coffee. Let's talk about coffee. I just filmed this whole thing and it's footage wasted because I didn't want to give you guys blurry video, stupidly out of focus. All right, what's up guys? Well, I hope everybody has had a great new year. I wanted to start this one off with a discussion that I've been wanting to have for a little while. It's freezing cold outside. It's like 20 something degrees. It's snowy, blah, blah, blah. So this is a good time for like a little garage setup. I got the wide angle lens here because I'm cramped in with like the lights and the cars and everything like that. So this one's gonna look a little weird, but stay with me here. So I wanted to have a discussion about what it's like to buy your dream car, at least from my perspective. This is one of those things that like anybody out there who's a car enthusiast, who is fortunate enough in life to buy their dream car, you're gonna have probably very wildly different experiences across the spectrum. But there's a couple of things about that process that I think is worth having a conversation about that you don't typically see, at least not on YouTube. So for anybody who's new to the channel, who hasn't seen the past couple of videos, a couple of months ago, I was lucky enough to buy what I deem my all-time dream car. This is my 95 Supra twin turbo, manual transmission, Targa roof, my all-time dream car in my all-time dream spec. However, now having had this car for a couple of months, there's a few thoughts about that process, about that experience. And so now this is gonna seem maybe a little negative, a little bit like a bummer, but it's not. And actually there's a positive sort of swing on the end. But anyway, the first point that I wanted to make about the dream car buying experience is that I didn't quite get this car how I'd hoped. It sounds a little bit weird, let me explain. So even though I have wanted this car for the better part of 3 decades, only the past couple of years did I ever really think about how I was gonna get it. So before that, it was just kind of like, I just couldn't wait for it to one day be in the garage. And trust me, even now, to see this thing in the garage is still quite a surreal experience. But how was I going to get it? So within the past few years, I thought, you know, it'd be cool. It'd be cool if I like started a business, had that business be successful, and then used some of the proceeds from that business to go and buy my dream car. That's not quite how it happened, primarily due to FOMO, fear of missing out. So for me, like, look, I'm in my mid-40s now, and even though I am chasing that whole business thing, and I do think that there is all of the possibility in the world, even though it's hard, but the possibility to, you know, grow and have a successful business, I'm thinking, look, dude, I don't want to get this car at like 60. I want to enjoy it at a slightly younger age. And if anybody who tracks the market for Supras knows, is that these cars aren't getting any cheaper. In fact, everything that we thought might kind of level off the price of these things, or at least tamper it a little bit, they've been resilient to. The last of which was the Japanese imports. With the 93s being able to be imported in 2018, the last of them will be able to be imported in 2027. But like, we kind of thought that like, the demand would be about the same, but the supply, there'd be more supply, and that would kind of bring prices down a little bit. That didn't happen at all. As a matter of fact, the Japanese imports that you could get a couple of years ago, they're now going up in price, and all it did to the USDM market was drive it up. So I'm not really one of those people that thinks that a right-hand drive is diminished in the experience of a left-hand drive, but the reality is that the left-hand drive versions are continuing to go up wildly in price. And so what I was worried about was we're gonna get into R34 territory, where to get a nice one, you know, you're gonna be spending $200,000-$300,000. And even if you have a lot of money, that's crazy money to spend on a Mark IV Supra. So I gave in to the FOMO. Now you could make the argument, as my wife does when I kind of go down the spiral, that in my situation, look, in my field, I've been in my field for about a little over 20 years, doing my particular job for about 12, specific role. I've sort of found an area in corporate software, carved out a little bit of a niche, whatever it is. So I've sort of carved out this little area that not a whole lot of people do, and it pays reasonably well. Not crazy good, but like it's a decent living, at least enough to, I was able to get this car in the driveway with, various factors. But it's still not, so you could say that like, yes, I developed something of a skill that was, valuable, worked a really long time to get better at it, to be very good at it. And again, I put the time in, a lot of time in my particular field, but it's still not quite the way that I'd hoped I'd get this car. Now, granted, again, I've wanted this car for about 30 years, and the whole notion of getting it by means of having a successful business is relatively new. So I can't say I'm wildly disappointed to having compromised on that notion, but nonetheless, I didn't quite obtain it the way that I wanted to. A car wasn't given to me, but it would have been cool to do that whole successful business thing, you know? Was I ready to afford this car, like, absolutely, completely? Probably not. It was a little bit of a clumsy grab, but still, where I think this might relate to people watching this is that, you know, if it really is your dream car, there's certain compromises that you might make, and for me, that was one of them. Now, speaking of compromises, that brings me to my next point, which is I overpaid for this car. Now, not crazy, but I think if this car were to go for sale and bring a trailer tomorrow, it's not gonna fetch probably what I paid for it. And even at that level, I got it for, I would say, a noteworthy amount less than what the dealer was asking for it. But I probably still overpaid for it. And like I said, that's just one of those compromises that I was kind of willing to make for what was my dream car. You know, like there's a million other cars that I'd love to own. I'd love to have an R34 Skyline. I'd love to have a 79, like a birthier Trans Am. Love to have a 3000 GT VR4, Nissan 300Z, the list goes on and on, but the Supra was above them all. And so that is one area where I kind of, you know, I know that I probably paid a little bit more than this car was worth, but I'm not terribly bothered by it. In a negotiation, you want both sides to walk away feeling like they're happy with the deal. If you have one side that is like, oh, I crushed it, and the other side feels resentful, bad balance. But if you have both sides feel like, you know, I'm happy with how things worked out, then that is the goal, and that's how I feel about this car, right? So I know I kind of overpaid for it a little bit, but here's the thing. This doesn't apply to every car, but it kind of does the Supra. There is quite a disparity out there between people who have these cars that are patient in selling them and people who want them and what they're willing to pay for them, like the asking versus the selling. There's not it's a little different there. And I would say that probably, and I'm just guessing, but like 97% of people out there looking to buy a Mark IV, people who would want to actually own a Mark IV, are probably not looking to pay Mark IV prices. But there is about 3% of us that are just crazy and are obsessed enough with this car, like you might be with yours, regardless of what that is, to pay a little bit more than the market would normally fetch for that type of car. And for me, look, again, like I said, this is my all-time dream spec, you know, high mileage though. I mean, this car has 100,000 miles on it, so it's not a collector car. I mean, you probably need to be at way less than half that in terms of miles for it to be a collective car. So certainly at 100,000 miles, it's up there. I mean, like that, for a 29-year-old car, that's like less than 300 driven miles a month for its lifetime, but still 100,000 miles is huge. But when you get down to looking at what people are asking for like 30,000 mile Supras, like it's just astronomical and well out of my range. So yeah, in terms of cost or price or what I paid for it, it was a little bit overpaid, and where I think, overpaid, and where I think this applies to, you know, other people, at least limited. If you don't have that financial discipline or that emotional discipline, you might find yourself overpay a little bit for your dream car, but depending on your situation, it might be worth it too. Okay, so let's start getting into what I think is probably a little bit more broad spectrum points here, things that are kind of, you get a little bit more objective that more people might resonate with when it comes to the whole dream car buying process. And this one is an interesting one. This one, I didn't see this one coming. If you finally get your dream car, and if you've spent a very long time chasing that dream car, when that chase is over, there will be a void there that is not filled by anything. It's a really weird kind of thought, right? I might be over dramatizing this a little bit, but here's how it went. Like I had brought the car home, it's in the garage, which is still a surreal experience, but I'm kind of hanging out one day, a few days later, and I'm like, like, that's it? Now what? Now it's not now what as in like, the car isn't whatever and now I don't know what to do with it. It was just that sort of thought that like, man, this is something that you've wanted for almost 3 decades and now you got it. And like that, the chase for that can't be replaced with something else. Like there's other things that I'm chasing, a successful business, maybe some other cars, but the Supra was among them all. And so now that being fulfilled, it was just kind of an interesting thought of like, okay, I have the car and yeah, that's just, it doesn't, the car is its own experience. Like owning the car is a whole separate thing. So the end of that chase just has to work itself out. Like there's nothing you can replace it with. You can't suddenly just go chase something else because it's not going to be as significant probably, at least not to me. So yeah, it's just one of those things that you sort of have to just let sort of dissipate on its own. And it was a really weird experience. The closest that I've heard anybody even reference this was Doug DeMuro. He did a video, a 6-month ownership update video on his dream car, which is a 2004 Porsche Carrera GT. And towards the end of the video, he was talking about how a lot of people go and buy what they think is their dream car, but it was really the chase that was more fun. And then they get the car and it doesn't quite live up to the hype. It's not what they thought it would be. And I could see that being the case. It was not the case for me, fortunately, but nonetheless, the part about that chase, there was still, it sucks to want something like that badly, but like there is something about that chase that is fun or exciting or I don't know what the emotion is or what the sentiment is, but you know what I mean? It's when that's over, there is an interesting void there that is not replaced by anything else. Again, it's something that I didn't think about, never even crossed my radar, but sure enough, a couple of days after having the car home, it was like, yeah, I guess that's it. I mean, there's always other stuff to chase maybe, but maybe none that are quite, maybe none that have the longevity of your dream car. If you just were on the street one day and you saw a car drive by that you thought looked kind of cool and you'd love to have one of those and you go out and buy it, cool, but like that's not your dream car. So if it's something that you've wanted for a very long time, that chase will end and it just has to kind of work itself out naturally. Last sip of coffee, it's probably cold by now. It's cold. All right, now I said this video was gonna end on a positive note and here it is. And this is the one thing that I think is probably most applicable to people out there who are chasing or buy their dream car and what hopefully you would expect or be able to experience with it, and that is the joy of ownership. And I mean like the unbridled, insanely great, just pure joy of ownership in what is your dream car. So like the great Chino Moreno once sang, this town don't feel mine. Well, for me, this car doesn't feel mine. At least not yet anyway, right? So, and this point was kind of augmented by a video I saw recently, which I will link below. I think you guys should check it out. If you're a car enthusiast, I think you'll like it. I saw this video from Larry Chen with Sung Kang, who, if you don't know him, he played Han in The Fast and the Furious. He has a 1972 Datsun 240Z that he built. And I don't mean built as in like he bought it built or built, sent it away to a company and they modified it and sent it back. I mean like dude built this car. Like could tell you every bolt, nut, fastener, stitch, everything, every modification that he made and why he made it and how special this steering wheel was over the whatever. It, like the excitement and the joy of owning that car, like it's palpable. Like you just feel it through the screen and it's enviable. And that's what I'm looking forward to with this car. Like if I had to give this car up tomorrow, I think I would, I don't know that I'd miss the car as much as I'd miss the potential for that experience, which I think only comes from being able to own your dream car. And so when I say this car doesn't really feel mine yet, I haven't had the time into it. You know, it's like, and this is kind of a cheesy analogy, but like, you know, when they say like make a house a home kind of thing, like if you ever bought your own house, you know that when you move in, it takes a while to feel like home. Like you gotta furnish it with your stuff. You gotta, you know, maybe you change the paint and put up your artwork and live in it. You just gotta live in it for a while for it to feel like your house, get a feel for where everything is. Like I can't tell you anything about this car, not yet. Anyway, like, sure, I could, you know, go on a little bit about the 2JZ engine or the V160 transmission or, you know, some things that might have been interesting technologically from like a 90s standpoint about this car, but like, I don't know anything about this car. And so part of that joy of ownership, I think, comes with time into, you know, like some repairs that I have to do, things that I have to replace, maybe some mods that I make, but really just time with the car, more time driving it around. Unfortunately, I got it in November, so in the Northeast, crappy weather, it's just not really favorable for like taking the, you know, the roof off and driving to the beach or something and having that time with the car. So I think the joy of ownership is the best aspect of buying your dream car. It doesn't fill that void from the chase being over, but if I could know as much about this car as Sung Kang does about his 240Z, I'll be happy. All right, guys, well, I think that is it for this one. So if you were still here, much appreciated. If you're currently chasing your dream car or if you've bought your dream car, I would love to hear about, you know, did any of these things resonate with you? Did you run into any of these things? Is there anything I didn't talk about that, you know, was unique to your experience that is worth noting? Comment below, let me know, would love to hear it. But in the meantime, hope you guys enjoyed this video and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.